your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
Well, hello, world, and welcome to episode 76 of Down South Anomalies. Of course, you're on the extraordinary Untold Radio Network. My name's Jay Katz.
And I'm Miss Basia.
And we have to tell you every week that we are broadcasting on stolen land, and we have to pay our respects and acknowledge the traditional elders past, present, and emerging. It's an interesting episode, Aspasia.
Yes, it is.
Frontiers of science. Should we be conCERNed with a big CERN there?
Yeah.
Because all of us are well aware that on Monday, the 8th of April, there is a total eclipse of the sun. Are you willing to sing the first few bars of that song for us?
No, I'm not.
And one of the major problems is when science, difficult, theoretical physics collides with the layperson, and that's who primarily we are.
We are.
We're just a happily married couple.
Most of the population is the lay people.
Yeah. So there's that problem. There's that disparity.
Laying, but yeah.
And so, good heavens, please.
Yeah.
So what we've got to consider is that with CERN starting up its Hadron Collider after a couple of years,
let's create that black hole
mode, and the fact that NASA is also firing 3 rockets with a very freaky little title, APEP, which is again a god, like Shiva, who's outside of CERN. They're all worried about why are they utilizing these names, this imagery. These are the gods of war. So what happens to the layperson when they're caught in the conundrum of trying to understand what's occurring is they go to the default mechanism. It's so much easier now because of the spread of information, good, bad, indifferent, false, fake, and which is paranoia, which is, oh my God, they're opening up the portal to hell.
Yeah, they are.
And everything's going to come out.
But we don't. Well, we
all
don't know.
All the elementals are coming forward,
Cabin in the woods.
Cthulhu is basically
cabin in the woods.
Yeah, so there's that incredible fear
so you've
there.
just done two different topics now.
Yeah.
You've done the eclipse on Monday, and you're talking about CERN and the firing up of the Hadron Collider in one conversation.
They're not that different because where this story is starting for us is a celebration of the theoretical physicists.
It is.
The fact that the theoretical physics is always evolving. And we need to have a much clearer understanding of that. Now,
for sure.
Before we start today, our weather has changed dramatically.
Last
night, our warehouse is flooded directly behind our green screen.
Yeah.
And at any moment now, the astounding Jimmy Brown is coming on tour all the way from Sheffield.
That guy will be at our door.
Will be. And they're the most mortal love songs you've ever seen in your life. Also, at the same time, for our particular podcast here, and Untold Radio, the astounding maverick director, screenwriter Dick Dale, from Rib Spreader,
that's right,
is down at Loch Ness at this very moment,
in Loch Ness,
interviewing one of there's the Loch Ness. That's one of the clearest shots I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
Or is it a painting?
I think it might be tires, but anyway.
Oh, okay. Anyway.
I think it's a sculpture.
He's there, and he just left a message up on Jay Katz's Facebook, which you can all go to and have a peek at. It's very hilarious. He goes, I'll be reporting for Down Under Anomalies.
Yeah.
Get the name of the show right, Dick Dale.
Well, actually.
It's Down South Anomalies.
Put that there.
Did you put that up there?
No, that's the way it was written up.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's always been like that.
Isn't
Anyway,
that astounding?
so Dick is up in Loch Ness.
Yeah.
And he will be
filming for us.
That's right.
He'll be talking,
and interviewing
one of the major researchers there.
Up there.
And so we'll be finding everything out about Loch Ness,
What's
the
going
monster, maybe the second monster, which I believe was was Aleister Crowley. And then the third one was probably Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin that brought Aleister Crowley's property, but I'm not too sure about any of that.
No.
And so we'll get clarity from Dick Dale. That episode will be coming up in the future when we do a podcast with that key researcher there at the Loch. But what we're going to do today, as per series, go back to 1961 in Sydney, Australia.
Yes.
For what was a groundbreaking. Can you put our first image up there, please? Thank you, darling. What was a groundbreaking comic strip?
A comic strip.
Because this comic strip was based on real science. And the real science came from the professor of physics at the Sydney University, Professor Stuart Butler. He was at the School of Physics.
Yeah.
And he teamed up with an incredible, groundbreaking Australian documentarian called, hold on, let me just get that right. Documentary filmmaker. I think it's Barry Raymond. I'll just check that. I've got notes everywhere here this morning, but we will.
So many notes.
It's too many notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got that?
So Bob Raymond was the other. Now they teamed up to do what turned out to be from 1961 to around 1982.
Yeah.
Some people say 79.
Wow.
I know the university actually did a whole exhibition about 3 years ago at Sydney. We've got a link to a lot of the strips that they downloaded.
Yeah.
Now, it was a comic strip in our most respected newspaper of the day, the Sydney Morning Herald.
That's correct.
And it ran for 5 days of the week, and that would be one entire story. And I think at the end, they accumulated 939 stories.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah.
So that's times 5 of those strips.
So it was one story a week, and they would do panels.
And
every day. So
strip panels.
Strip panels so you could understand it.
Yes.
Yeah. Should I go to some of the strip panels? Yeah.
Yeah, please. Well, let's just go to the covers of the compendiums. There's some of the strip panels there.
Yeah, there's
let's go to the covers. These paperbacks we do have.
Yeah.
And you can still find them out there, but God, they go for a pretty penny. They really do. Now, just like this notion of like bridging the gap, how do we actually get it into the layperson's mind? They teamed up with some brilliant artists here. There was an Italian artist.
Yeah. Andre Bresciani.
And David Emerson took over after Bresciani.
Yeah.
Now, what they did was they were able to literally conceptualize ideas that were in their evolutionary stage. Things
postulating.
Like they were still postulating, is there such a thing as a black hole?
Yeah, right.
But they had 2 major stories on that. There's an image of our brilliant professor of physics, Stuart Butler there, who died at a very young age, 55 years of age. It's shocking. But this incredible legacy has been left behind that is the frontiers of science. Let's just have a look at a few of those panels now.
Yeah.
As I said, it debuted in 1961. The strip was soon offered to international syndication. It was snapped up by a number of international syndicates for US distribution by the Los Angeles Times. The LA Times syndicated version was offered in 1962, and it met with modest success. Worldwide, the strip ran everywhere from 200 to 600 newspapers, depending on what version of history you believe. And that's what we're pronounced about today, believing what particular version of history. It was pop entertainment, but about the breaking the frontiers of science. So maybe just name, they look a little blurry to me.
They do a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey.
So but we've got a link actually in this cast. So before you pop them up, just tell the names of those stories. So in a way, we're not stepping over their copyright, but at least we're getting some of their predictive pop culture ideas out. So that one's about the death ray. atmosphere that we've got up now.
Yes, that's the death ray.
Which is quite astounding.
This one's electronic. I can't see the whole name, unfortunately.
That's all right. That's okay.
Electronic. This one's about electronic. Does it say it up there? Oh, electronic. What is that?
Don't worry.
Okay.
And don't.
All right.
All right. Now, as I said, he teamed up with Bob Raymond. Now, Bob Raymond was behind.
It's a controversial one. This one's about the flu vaccine.
Yeah. Bob Raymond was the man that created Four Corners, which is quite astounding when you think about it.
It's a long-running Australian journalistic investigative
it's still going
TV
today,
show
and
on
it's
the
still
ABC
amazing.
radio.
And Max Murch that did Close Encounters Down Under with us, who was the writer and one of the producers. He actually was a Four Corners journalist, a contemporary one.
Yeah.
So was Steve Kinane. So it's quite interesting.
Look, so many panels. What's that one? Messages from the Stars. This one?
Yeah. And of course, what we're talking about here too is the fascination of the public with science because we're in the midst of the space race, which is something that is occurring all over again. It's amazing, what is new is actually old.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so
this one's about radio thought control.
Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
One of the most terrifying strips was about a super bomb being investigated in the USSR. It was a real project, fortunately, that was abandoned. And I'll tell you why it was fortunately abandoned.
Yeah.
Because it was the equivalent to launching 20 Chernobyls into the upper atmosphere.
Wow.
It was a major above ground text. Imagine what that would have done to the ionosphere.
Oh, it wouldn't have been good, that's for sure.
It would have been a frigging
disaster. Disaster.
So this incredible work at the university to actually digitize these strips, I think you're better off going to the longer ones there that aren't as blurry. And if you're listening to us on audio, please go and check us out on YouTube.
This one's the elusive neutrino. So lots of all very interesting subjects, but I
mean, the neutrino is something that now at CERN,
yes,
the search for the God particle, is it the neutrino? This particle that appears to be able to possibly go through all forms of matter and remains elusive till this day. But I'm talking, you need to go and look at Frontiers of Science for the real science. Don't listen to me. Stuart Butler is well respected. He was part of the Atomic Energy Commission out here. He worked at Lucas Heights. And he was again looking at atmospheric physics. There's a lot of studies done on the ionosphere down here in Australia. It was, in a sense, they knew that we were building up to the hole in the ozone layer.
Right.
So what we've got is a link in our cast notes that will take you to the digital archive out of the University of Sydney.
Yep.
And I also suggest that you punch in Frontiers of Science. You will see an incredible visual lecture presented about Stuart and Mr. Raymond there in terms of their astounding work. The one thing, I mean, they even visualized like the event horizon on a black hole, which was so speculative back then.
Yeah.
And, as a young boy, really fascinated by technology and the space race, Frontiers of Science was something I always read.
Yeah, right.
And what it did, it broke that barrier of academia and put it into simpler terms.
So you could
and made it
understand
exciting visually, like a comic strip.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the greatest tools for educating others. If we keep that gap between science and the layperson, there will always be this problem of the default mechanism taking us into not exactly real material, fake material.
But being fearful of it or not, because we don't understand it, we don't go there.
Well, Butler was really concerned about the need for science to explain itself better to the public, and was respected by the media for his activities. Now, this is really totally groundbreaking work coming directly out of Sydney, Australia, where we're broadcasting from. from one of the highest credentialed physicists in the land and is literally forgotten about today.
Totally.
And we should all step back there, because in a predictive pop culture way, there are panels in there. There's one about living with computers.
Right. Oh, yes.
And even though there's some wired sort of remote controls, there's the TV screen in the corner producing non-stop data.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it's that Marshall McLuhan world of being able to see into the future and see what it was like.
Yeah, what was going to be
and
like.
To team that up with a maverick, one of the, I think Bob Raymond ended up doing like 100 documentaries for the ABC here, the Australian Broadcasting Commission. And those documentaries were some of the first documentaries to concentrate on issues about conserving the resources and looking after the planet.
Right,
so two absolute mavericks there. So Stuart Butler, Bob Raymond should be applauded for their work, along with the artists. And the artists were able to do something astounding, and that is conceptualize really complex scientific ideas into something that we could all visually understand.
And it would have drawn, like you said, I mean, you were reading it when you were a child. You were a child back
then.
Yeah,
and it really made me, actually, my last year of high school, decide I was going to take up first level science. Well, I had to dump that because it was a lot more complicated than I thought. But I was very excited about it. If you actually go down to the ones at the end there, they're a little bit clearer. But as we said to people, we have the link up. And you literally...
You can go and see them all yourself.
Now, if you go to our moving images, Aspasia, there's a piece there I've got recently from a librarian in the US that uncovers not the work of Stuart or Bob here, but uncovers science comics today.
Right.
Let's just have a little listen to that.
Hey everybody, it's Mrs. Palin, the librarian, with today's book reviews. So, shame on me, I didn't know about these. I learned about them at a professional development thing this past weekend. I know, whatever, it is what it is. Science comics? Have you heard of these? Now, the workshop I was in was a graphic novel, and I was expecting the same kind of titles to be floating around, maybe catch a new one here and there. Never really considered the nonfiction side of it. Again, shame on me. These are terrific. Published by a publishing house called The Last Second, First Second. This is the publishing house. :01, get it, for a second. They're all science-based. This one's about sharks. This one's about space. There are many published under this heading, and they are informative. They have some fake characters at the beginning that have conversations, you know, and then all of the information is woven into the book. A great addition to your graphic novel section for kids who don't want to read about fantasy or whatever, that want to learn, but want to learn in a graphic format. I would love it to be a little bit lower level, to be perfectly honest. This looks probably between 3rd, 4th grade reading level. I would love a series like this for like 1 and 2, you know, much lower reading level, but no matter what reading level these are going to get picked up. These are going to get used, and some learning is going to happen because kids are going to want to pick up.
Yeah.
There you go. And she doesn't look a thing like Sarah, the librarian there, Mrs. Palin. Yeah. But you can see, even today, a teacher having an epiphanous moment,
a librarian who
coming
works
across
with,
an easier way to get complex ideas into the minds of the young.
Well, it's not an easier. It's not even an easier way. It's a way to attract children to read about stuff that is such correct. It really has been made into a very dry subject. You know, when you think of science, you're like, oh God, yeah, this is beyond my level of, you know, absorbing the information, because it's just the way scientists talk they talk they talk in all this scientific jargon, which is really, really complex for people, lay people who are not in the industry, right? Because that's an industry. They don't understand. So immediately you're going to go, yeah, no, I can't go there. It's too hard for me to absorb or grasp the concept. So they like, no.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Scientific Frontiers from 1961 to 1982, 939, fairly accurate, fairly mind-boggling, fairly predictive
at their time,
comic strips, beautifully illustrated, and it is so worthy to actually go to that site and check out that work. These breakthrough works must never be forgotten. You know, there's one other classic example that comes to mind, and that is the actor Alan Alda.
Oh, yes. Alan Alda, the Centre for, let me just have a look and see and tell you, Centre for Communicating Science.
Yeah, and so Alan was famous for...
still is very famous actor. He played Hawkeye, Dr. Pierce in the TV series long-running MASH. Which I think, if my memory serves me correct, the last episode of MASH was one of the highest watched TV episodes ever.
And I've always loved the theme. We've got a great Tex-Mex version of that recorded from the time.
Suicide is
painless. Do you think it's painless? I don't think it is.
Well, it depends how you do it, I suppose.
Now, talking about Bob Raymond and even talking about suicide being painless, which I'm sure it isn't. For some, maybe it depends what system you like.
Not for the
we are not promoting it though,
No.
and we shouldn't even be using that word in the podcast. But it's the title to a song there.
Come on, then.
But it's also what happened to our next character in this trilogy of stories here today, which is atmospheric physicist way ahead of his time, James E. McDonald. He came out to Australia. If you just put up the Firestorm book there, probably the best book on his entire career and his fight for UFO science. Now, we've got an interview coming up off the original Four Corners, which Bob Raymond was the person that created the idea and started to originally produce it, which is an astounding segue. In this interview, you will hear the stories that we're hearing today. And this is what is so frustrating about studying the subject of ufology. There are so many incidents worldwide, so many qualified, and I'm not dismissing unqualified people that have experienced it, but the amount of pilots, the amount of scientists, the amount of highly credentialed individuals that have had ufological experiences cannot be dismissed. And this is where James E. McDonald came into the fore. Unfortunately, in 1971, evidently, he walked into the desert and took his own life. But let's see the incredible caliber, and then please go to the numerous lectures, audio lectures, go to his archives in the US, check out the incredible data he already had accumulated in a short space of time. He became the victim of extreme academic ridicule that destroyed his life, destroyed his family life, and evidently drove him to suicide. Maybe it wasn't suicide.
Well,
maybe it was something even more nefarious. But let's have a look at and a listen to the incredible James E. McDonald when he came down to Australia.
Here in Australia,
he actually interviewed the teacher and students connected to the Westall incident in 66 whilst he was down here. And he was down here for the CSIRO doing something to what NASA is doing with that shadow there with the eclipse that's coming up, looking at ionospheric, atmospheric irregularities.
UFOs, unidentified scientific objects, have been one of the great scientific bugaboos of the last decade. Say you've seen one and you're ridiculed, or at least that's the way it used to be. Nowadays, while there are still plenty of scoffers and jeerers, you're more likely to be listened to, and an increasing amount of scientific investigation is being conducted. In Australia at the moment is Professor James McDonald, Professor of Meteorology at the University of Arizona. Officially, he was working for the US Navy, but in his spare time he's checking many Australian reports of UFOs and comparing them with American reports. His aim is to see if the reports tally, in short, whether UFOs constitute a global phenomenon. In Melbourne, he's talking with Brian King.
Professor MacDonald, what have you found here that's been of use to you?
I've investigated about 50 or 60 cases since I came down to New Zealand and Australia. Extremely interesting UFO sightings. A lot of help from local investigatory groups in Sydney and Melbourne. And have found, as I go through these, that the type of sightings are essentially similar to those in the United States.
What are the main similarities?
Persons of really quite high credibility reporting unconventional objects, discs, cigar-shaped objects, frequently at very low elevation, hovering over sometimes urban areas, sometimes over cars, following cars. Same kind of public reaction, quite a strong similarity to the American reluctance to report them to official channels because of fear of ridicule. But behind it all, a very large number, a very surprisingly large number of these sightings of quite unconventional objects maneuvering in our airspace.
You have been highly critical of your own government's attitude towards UFOs.
Indeed I have, yes. I've taken a very good look at the American official investigation program, Project Blue Book, run by the Air Force, and I have quite unequivocally described it to scientific colleagues back in the States as superficial and incompetent.
Why has the government taken this attitude, in your opinion?
It's not a brief story, but it goes back to 1953 when a CIA-involved investigation was held. As a result of the extremely heavy wave of sightings in 1952, the CIA and Air Force became so concerned over the sheer number of reports that were tying up American intelligence channels that they wanted to get this signal out of the system, asked the Air Force, the CIA asked the Air Force for a debunking policy. The literal wording was to debunk the flying saucers, to decrease public interest in the UFOs. Regulations were promulgated very shortly that made it a crime, punishable with, I think it's $10,000 fine and or 10 years in prison to release any information at airbase level on UFOs. And as a result of that, in a sequence of steady downgrading, the whole problem has been essentially lost from scientific sight in the U.S., and nothing resembling any scientific investigation has been going on in the past 15 years.
Has this been typical of the attitude of most world governments?
As nearly as I can tell, yes. There seems to be quite surprising similarity between the official Russian, British, Australian, Canadian, American, French, Italian pronouncements. They all seem to take the view that there's nothing to it, that it's a lot of nonsense, that people see things, and that it is not a real scientific problem at all. And I most heartily disagree with that.
You have been as far as the United Nations with this problem.
Yes, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, on the 7th of this month, of June, nearly a month ago now, I spoke to the Outer Space Affairs Group in the United Nations, urging immediate UN action on this problem. It seems to me that the UN is one of the best places to tackle the international, the global aspects of the UFO problem, and all evidence now points to its being a truly global phenomenon.
U Thant made a statement at the time.
I didn't get to see U Thant. That was a busy day, June 7th. In fact, I had a date to see him at 4 o'clock, and if there was any 1 hour that was the peak of the Mideast crisis, 4 o'clock was it. So I unfortunately didn't get to see U Thant. But quite recently, a few days ago, I got a wire from a phone call from San Francisco pointing out that he had made a statement to Drew Pearson, an American columnist, that aside from the Vietnamese War, the UFO problem is the greatest international problem. And I sent him a wire strongly endorsing his position, but disagreeing with him to the extent of saying that I believe it's the most important international problem.
Why?
We have in the UFO problem a very strange situation. Here for 20 years plus, essentially similar phenomena have been reported all over the world, large numbers in the U.S., officialdom ignoring them, Air Forces ignoring them, and yet apparently a steady increase in the numbers of reliable reports from people in all walks of life seeing these objects that are not products of our technology, that are not meteorological astronomical phenomena, hovering at low altitude, increasing numbers in urban areas, and collectively we don't know what's going on. That's an extremely unwise situation, no matter how you view it. We do not know what is involved in this problem. There are no strong indications of anything resembling hostility. I see some faint indications of hazard and danger, but in general, to have this possibility that the world is under something resembling reconnaissance, possibly from some extraterrestrial source, and to go on about our petty ways collectively doesn't seem to me to be a wise situation. So I'm trying to get scientists and governmental agencies to take a look at this at a highly accelerated pace.
Professor MacDonald, thank you very much.
Here. I mean, my heart breaks when I hear the incredible sincerity, the eloquence, and this man wants this exposed to the world because of the massive amount of reports.
Well,
aren't we hearing the same rhetoric today?
Who was going to, make a report of seeing some flying saucer when if you out of a high level of was it the Army, the Air Force,
the military,
the
Air
military,
Force, yeah.
If you made a report like that, you could be fined $10,000 back then and get 10 years in jail. Of course, nobody was going to.
Back then.
Even now, nobody was going to make a report. I
guess what we're looking at there too is that's around the same time, 1967. That was literally 60 years ago, 57 years ago he was out here. That was around the same time that J.L. and Hynek had copped it in the US for coming up with the swamp gas hypothesis.
So that was in 1967. So that was a year after Westall, because Westall was in 1966. So he was interviewing all the people,
the witnesses. He got to talk to the science teacher that spoke to no one else.
Yeah,
those interviews sit up on YouTube.
Yes, they do.
Please go and listen to the clarity of James E. MacDonald.
And if you want to find out more about James E. MacDonald,
this book exposes it all. Andrew Fall has done an extraordinary job there. Firestorm, you can get it straight off Amazon or some cheaper source. Have a look for it.
Yeah.
It is so worth reading.
Yeah.
And up there with Dr. J.L. and Hynek, these two men alone would tell the greatest skeptic at the end of the day, if they actually paid attention to their writing, their speeches and their lectures, that the UFO conundrum is an extraordinary reality.
Yeah.
And at the moment, the rain has just picked up here, and I get a feeling we're going to be flooded at any moment, Anyway, the work of James E. MacDonald, it breaks my heart because he did walk into the desert and took his own life. And it was deafening, the ridicule, the assault that was attached to him in the academic world.
Okay.
So if we don't have people with those sort of qualifications that think of the greater picture, think of the wider humanity, and not keeping this stuff close to their heart as a classified or secret, look what we know and they don't.
Yeah.
You're going to end up with problems like this, the way that CERN might be completely misinterpreted.
Have you ever wondered why the European Organization for Nuclear Research, better known as CERN, chose its unique location in Geneva, Switzerland? Is there a deeper, perhaps even biblical significance to this choice? Today, we delve into the mysteries surrounding this scientific powerhouse and the dark implications it could have for our world. The story of CERN begins in the post-war Europe of the 1950s. Established in 1954, CERN's primary mandate was to unravel the secrets of the universe, to understand the fundamental structure of the cosmos. But why Geneva? Why not London, Paris, or Berlin? The answer, some suggest, lies in the Bible. Revelation speaks of a bottomless pit, a portal to another realm. And guess where this pit is believed to be located? Right under Geneva, the home of CERN. As the decades passed, CERN became a beacon of scientific discovery. Its Large Hadron Collider, a 17-mile loop of superconducting magnets, has allowed scientists to observe particles that were previously theoretical. But some believe this is merely a cover for a darker purpose, the creation of a stargate, a portal to other dimensions. What could come through such a portal? The founders of CERN admitted they didn't know. They spoke of new discoveries, new frontiers. But others caution that these portals could open the gates of hell itself, unleashing forces we cannot comprehend or control. The evidence, they claim, is hiding in plain sight. Consider CERN's logo. To the untrained eye, it's a stylized representation of particle accelerators, but some see the number 666, the number of the beast, hidden within the lines. And then there's the statue of Shiva, the Hindu goddess of destruction, standing proudly outside CERN's headquarters. Why would a scientific institution choose a deity associated with destruction as its symbol? In summary, CERN is a paradox. It's groundbreaking.
That was amazing then, because when you saw, you went there. You went, oh yeah, why would they use that? But here is the problem with keeping this stuff at a level where the layperson doesn't understand. The default mechanism now is we will go down the rabbit hole and never come back.
No.
And so a lot of people believe the end is nigh.
Sure.
And maybe so close, it's Monday the 8th.
Yeah, right.
And so when the eclipse, which won't be visible in Australia.
We're not going to be able to see it.
But lots of Americans will see it and be caught in that darkness.
In the northern hemisphere, but not the southern
Make sure you've got those incredible glasses to look at it. Don't look at it with the naked eye. And don't look at this information with the naked eye. Put it through a filter that has a bit of common sense attached to it. I don't think that portal is opening because they're saying they're firing it up.
So when are they going to fire up the
They've already fired it up.
That's right. That's the thing, isn't it?
Let's actually go to a scientist at CERN for the dirt on CERN.
Finally worked out why you were all asking me if we are restarting the LHC on April 8th. Hi, my name is Clara and I am a particle physicist working on the Atlas experiment at CERN. In fact, I've just finished a night shift in our control room. I've now finally understood why I'm getting these messages saying, are you starting the LHC on April 8th? It's because the solar eclipse in the US also happens to be on April the 8th. Just to let you know, well, the LHC is already back on. We've been having beams back in the accelerator since the beginning of March, specifically March 8th, and we have been commissioning the Large Hadron Collider, which means checking that all of the settings and everything's running properly before we do the collisions for data taking. So we have already been doing test collisions, but it's the regular running that starts on April the 8th. It just happens to coincide with an astronomical event. So the timing is a pure coincidence.
I tell you what,
there's no such thing as a pure coincidence.
Come. No. I tell you what, she looks great for someone who's been up all night on the night shift. And thank you, Clara, for actually dispelling a lot of the myths around this. The LHC has been running now for weeks.
A month. Well, for a month. Well, so on April the 8th, it will be a month that it's been running.
And you know what? I went through literally hundreds of little inserts there from, Twitch and Twitter and all those things, Instagram, searching for some sense, searching for a scientist.
There's no sense out there.
Now, most of them are about this is going to be it. The Fuller is coming back. The portals
once they
to
put the on switch
up.
on, that's the end of it. It's the on switch has been on since March the 8th.
And the other thing is we need to see these scientists. We need to realize that these scientists primarily are us. They're very down-to-earth people and that they can actually make that science palatable, understandable to the common person out there. It is extremely important, or we're going to end up in a quagmire and confusion.
Well, that's what the Alan Alda Center for, what was it again? I know, hang on. The Center for Communicating Science.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
He actually gets scientists there and takes them out of the science lecture, right, and into science conversations.
Yes.
So people can understand what they're saying.
Bridging the gap.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's been doing that for quite a while. He's an amazing activist and, he's just
an all-round great guy.
He is an all-round great guy, but he's getting on now too.
One of the few positive things to step out of that Hollywood world.
Hollywood, I know.
Now,
anyway.
We did a great interview and we were proud to do it with the extraordinary Wrench Man.
Yes.
The Soul of the Earth.
Absolutely.
One of the moderators were there with Diane and numerous other great people on the Untold Radio Network last week.
Yep.
And we spoke about the fact that, during the Easter period, the greatest sadness in the US is that there isn't a Sasquatch, a Bigfoot, multiplicity of indigenous names, chocolate Easter egg.
Yeah.
But there is a Yowie one back here in Australia. And so we thought towards the end of this episode, this short episode this week, that we will actually do not the unboxing, but the unwrapping of the Yowie egg, which I brought you.
You went and
this
bought me
week.
one.
Yeah.
Yes,
and you told me you'd never seen one before.
Where did you find it?
You need to open your eyes.
Yeah, I know.
It's just like people out there doing the research. Slow down, pay attention.
So what is
it's
it? Yowie
all around.
Squish. So there's a surprise inside this.
Well, they're sort of built like the Kinder Surprise.
Yeah,
so
right.
You want to open that up?
I'm going to open that up and see what the surprise is.
Yeah, great. Here we go live, ladies and gentlemen. What an incredible. Do you mind doing it on camera?
Okay.
Thank you.
Go.
On Down South Anomalies, things don't get more marginalised than this program.
This is like a big Kinder Surprise.
Okay. All right, you're going to break it open on top of the laptop?
Yeah, well, I'll
break it down here. Come on.
I'm trying to
smash it with your head
or something. I don't want to smash it. I wanted to. Oh, you've got it. Okay, so I've sort of cracked it half open with a hole.
Properly, would you? For God's sake.
Oh, yeah.
You are such a cutie still.
All right, and there's
there's
an egg within an egg.
Egg
the
within
Russian
an egg.
And let's see what the surprise is in the
Oh God, Asper.
God, how's a child supposed to open this?
Well, maybe there's a simple way of doing it, and us adults
there
complicate everything.
Okay. Oh,
what have you got there?
Oh,
good heavens!
Oh, okay. That is.
Oh my God!
Wow. It's pink. Hang on.
Okay, tell me what that actually
it's a fish.
is.
Is it one of those walking fish?
Is it one of those fish that they thought was extinct for thousands of years? Giant frogfish.
Giant frogfish.
Read us.
A baby fish called a fry with modified pectoral fins resembling legs. The giant frogfish walks the ocean floor in tropical waters from the Indian Ocean to the eastern coast of the Pacific Ocean. A fry is the species. A fry of this species can grow up to 50 centimeters or 19.75 inches long. Plus, they can change color based on their surroundings. A mom giant frogfish can produce between 40,000 and 180,000 eggs at once, and the babies can have all sorts of coloring. Wow. So there you go.
That's quite educational, really.
That is educational. Yeah. And that's actually, I don't know if you can see
it's a good representation.
But
you've got the little walking.
There's I don't know if you can see. Hang on.
No, we're not going to get that up clearly, darling. Oh,
you can see the picture.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, it's a live unboxing.
The picture, it's actually quite amazing looking. So they haven't done too bad a job.
Yeah.
To making it, but that's the the giant frog walking frogfish.
Would you like to just test a bit of that chocolate for us live on air?
Oh, well, chocolate's chocolate.
And I think that retails in Australia for around $3.
Wow.
Post-Easter. Might be more expensive pre-Easter, but hey.
Anyway.
There you go. Okay,
I like nice. Chocolate and education.
Okay, brilliant.
I love it.
Brilliant.
Beautiful. Anyway, so there you go.
Well, look, I think the work of Science Frontiers, Frontiers of Science, we've got that link down there. This is going to be a very short episode. We've got some incredible interviews
They've got
coming
about
up.
200 panels that you can go and check out.
Yeah, and they're still digitizing. There's 939, so they're going to be digitizing for quite some time. But they've done an incredible job there, thanks to the University of Sydney here in Australia. Wow.
Yeah.
The work of James E. McDonald. And listen, let's not worry too much about CERN cracking the hole in the portal to hell. I think we should be all able to live through that.
Why do they have that statue? That's weird, isn't it?
Well, there's always those moments.
Don't you think?
It?
Sometimes the things that they have, the
names they put on these things for the 3 rockets going up there.
Yeah, what are they? They're
APEP, which is based on a deity of destruction, again out of Egypt.
Wow.
And they don't help the conspiratorial,
no, they don't, do they?
Paranoid of mind, But we must remember the original etymology on words like paranoia went back to heightened perception. It wasn't about fear.
No, it wasn't.
It's a lot of selling of fear. And what we try to do here on Down South Anomalies, and it might be incredibly delusional, is remove the fear. Get a bit of absurdity happening in there and a bit of excitement. And we also believe it's really important to actually step back before history became so contaminated, so convoluted with so much noise. So great to step back to the 40s, 50s, and 60s and look at the world of anomalies, especially ufology, and see the clarity that was there on the subject, but also see was having the same arguments, the same debates. Today, the 50, Arrow report
60
dismissing
years, 70 years down the track, we're still...
And I don't like that notion of the double-sided message. You know, they have this in psychiatry and psychology. They believe that element of nature and nurture. And when it comes to things like schizophrenic thought patterns, which can be quite destructive, they do believe if there is nurture involved and there has to be nature, there has to be some form of,
I think it's a bit
difference in brain chemistry. There's the double-sided message, especially in adolescence, that can create such confused thinking patterns. And sometimes you can feel, but it's just a thought, it's just a theory. You can feel that these means, these notions are put out there purposely to, you know, if you create confusion and we all fight amongst ourselves, then we're never going to see that bigger picture.
Well, isn't that the way?
That could be just a flight of fancy on my behalf.
Then they can do they can
but
do whatever they want.
But you've got to be careful about speculation, and you also have to be careful about assumption. You have to be clear with your research, and also realize.
But there is also intuition and gut feelings.
Yeah, of course there is.
You know what
I mean? And then there's the people that experience it.
Yeah.
And the majority of people that come to our sites and look for this information have all had an experience.
Some sort of
the majority of scientists, Susan Blackmore, Persinger, all those people, if you go trolling back in their past, you will you will find that they had an experience they're trying to unravel. Whether it's by getting a science degree or whether it's stepping down the wrong rabbit hole and ingesting the wrong pill. I believe a very small part of the population, I side with Doug here, from Untold Radio. A very, very tiny part of the population are aware that we're living in a duplicitous reality. And so when most people are hit with the notion, is something else occurring? They're just not ready for it. Let's go back to Sydney there in the 60s and just see what that statement I said is like in effect.
Do you indeed think that there is life on other planets? Do you think there's life on other planets?
Oh, I don't know.
Would you like to think about it for a second?
Oh, not really.
Tell me, do you think there is life on other planets?
Well, I'm not quite sure, but I suppose there would be.
No, he seems definite.
Really?
He seems definite.
Definitely.
How do you see this life and where?
Oh, I've seen a flying saucer.
You've seen one?
Yes,
where
definitely. At Lane Cove.
When was this?
1953.
You don't think this is a figment of your imagination?
Several other people with me saw it.
You all had the same figment. What did it look like?
It was standing up there, still.
Just suspended in space?
With colours coming out of it.
Flat or on its side?
It was around.
And you think this was sent from another planet, do you?
I really do. Well, where else would it come from?
Do you think there's life on other planets?
Oh, well, I wouldn't like to even discuss that.
Why not?
It's a debatable point, I suppose.
What do you think yourself? You must have an opinion here.
Well, definitely not.
Not?
Not.
Well, what leads you to say that? Scientific investigation or...?
Well, only working off the theory of the Bible. Well, there's only one world, isn't there? And
but do you think that can stand up to present scientific investigation? This
I think it could.
Creed. Do you think so?
I think
as far
it
as
could.
the universe goes?
Definitely so.
In your opinion, do you think there is life on other planets?
No, I hope not.
Why do you hope not?
Because they'd be frozen to death.
Do you think there is life on other planets?
No, I'm German.
Yes, definitely.
Why?
Yes.
What sort of life do you see up there?
Vegetable.
Do I think there's life on other planets? No.
Why not?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't think we'll find anything when eventually we land on Venus?
I don't think we'll find life.
What do
We
you think
might
we'll
find very interesting things, though.
Such as?
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't really say what as. I don't know. but I dare say it'll be something worth knowing.
I think there is life on other planets.
And how do you see this life? How do you visualize it yourself? Is
It's
it
rather
like this?
queer-looking people.
Queer-looking people. They're totally different from the people on Earth?
I suppose so.
Uh-huh. Would you like to get up there yourself and see it on Venus?
Not particularly.
Why not?
Because I like it down here. I reckon there is.
What makes you reckon that?
Well, just, I don't know, it's not imagination, it's just what,
You're being led by scientific discoveries, etc.
yes.
Yeah, well, how do you see this life? If you think there is life up there, how do you see it? What form do you think it takes?
Animal. Because we're animals, aren't we?
Well, some of it.
Yes.
Speak for yourself. How do you see them up there, though?
Oh,
I mean, the same as here? You think land on Venus will discover people like you?
No.
Totally different.
It all depends what atmosphere they're living in. I think it'll be an animal form, but I don't think it'll be like us.
You think that's a good thing?
Well, I don't know.
Would you like to get up there and find out for yourself?
Definitely.
Would you?
To right,
You'd
I would.
volunteer for this?
To right, I would. I'd like to be the first woman in space.
Do you think there is life on other planets?
Oh, I don't know.
Have you thought about this at all?
No.
Do you think there is...
I don't think many people have thought about that. That was hilarious.
No, wasn't it?
I'm German.
I'm German. There's nothing.
Not going there.
There's nothing.
That was the streets of Sydney in the 60s up there at King's Cross, our red light area. And quite fascinating to see the majority of people hadn't really thought about it. But then in the middle of it, ubiquitously from the dawn of time, UFO encounter 1953 in Lane Cove Park.
And he was absolutely, I'm meeting him with Yowie Easter egg. Anyway, he was absolutely adamant. He knew what he saw. He saw it with other people. He goes, oh, you know, a figment of your imagination. He goes, well, I saw it with other people. We're all having the same figment. You know?
And I think I can remember reading about that case as well. A lot of interesting stuff happened down in that park. Talk about the Atomic Energy Commission. You know, that was a picnic spot to an infamous murder, the Bogle and Chandler murder.
Isn't that where they laced the steaks with plutonium?
No, that's another story. Let's not
was
get
part of it.
Dinky Dalton's
But that
with
was
that
part of
Hartwood.
it, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, later on, after the Bogle and Chandler
right.
incident.
Yeah.
But when a head of the Atomic Energy Commission is found dead in a park with what looks like another physicist who was
female,
mistress, maybe. Covered in cardboard and naked.
Naked, covered under cardboard.
Yep.
Apparently there was some sort of swamp gas that overwhelmed them and they took their clothes off and wrapped themselves in cardboard.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's a whole other story.
Oh, man, let's not go
we
there.
cannot go into at the moment.
Isn't that where your parents took you several times?
That's
to
why
that
I said it was a
spot?
picnic spot. My parents would take me down there as a young
and say,
child.
this is where Bogle and Chandler were.
Talk about that story. So no wonder at 65 I'm here on the end of this podcast with you.
Exactly. Anyway, look, that's our show for this week.
You're eating the
Yowie. I've started eating the Yowie Easter egg. Anyway,
something that they need to bring in the Sasquatch Outpost should get them custom made.
We should have got more. I think I might look up and see what other.
You want to collect
surprises.
This set now?
Well, I don't want to collect them.
I've started something.
That's the last thing I want to do is start collecting more things. But I'd like to go and have a look and see what other things they've got in their
all right,
in their surprises.
Now I know we're always tempting our audience, our listeners, our supporters, and we thank and appreciate you all. But we do have the director of Sons of Steel, one of the greatest lost classic Australian films. Piece of Ozploitation to tell us an incredible story about when he was actually filled with the spirit of the early maverick explorer Percy Fawcett. So hopefully we'll get that. He was down
looking for the
week.
Fountain of
No. Please. Just calm down. You jump into conclusions.
He was looking for El Dorado, the gold. That's right. Sorry.
You jump in there all the time.
Well, if you find the gold of El Dorado, then you can go and get heaps of Fountain of Youth stuff, can't you?
Yeah, but it's a really complex, convoluted, fascinating story. Hopefully that'll be coming up in next week's podcast.
Clarify it for us?
Roger Stankovic is coming back to talk about all the recent disclosures in the US about
that
Havana
was all very
syndrome.
interesting, wasn't it?
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
But look, we do have to stop and pause and appreciate those that are gone and realize that their work is still incredibly and vastly important.
Yep.
So there is an amazing archives out there. You can just look it up with a simple Google search for James E. McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the Sydney University and look at those incredible strips of Frontiers of Science.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Butler, their incredible work, groundbreaking work. And we thank you so much for your time today. Just be kind to each other. You know that. And just keep your feet on the ground and your eyes on the sky. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. We'll be back next week with another riveting program. I'm sure.
I love the way you say that, you know. Anyway, we love you all. Much respect. Take good care. You've been on Down South Anomalies, episode number 76, Frontiers of Science. Should we be concerned? And we